Back at Gamescom 2017, brought to you by Intel, with me at the desk, Adam, the better half of Two Angry Gamers, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, and we'll be talking today with Danny and Tobi from Warhorse Studios, who will bring us what kind of game? What is it?
We brought today Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is an open world RPG, but the special thing is, because there are a lot of open world RPGs, the special thing is it's without magic and dragons, but we try to kind of recreate the real medieval feeling, bring you back into the 15th century and show you how the medieval age actually really looked like.
So it will be brutal.
Well, kind of course. Well, we, of course, always thought about how far should you go, how much does it help to actually gameplay and the gameplay experience. So there will be, of course, some blood and fighting and stuff, and you are in the middle of the brawl and you have to survive, but there will be no cutting of limbs and stuff like this. There are borders and yeah.
Well, you brought us, I think, 15 minutes of a big roll to see the gameplay and so on, is that correct?
Exactly. We brought you a mixture of combat scenes, which we prepared for you, and it's actually to show you that we recreated medieval sword fighting. So we had real sword fighters in the studio who said, this is how it's supposed to look like. We told them why this is not possible. And together we created a nice compromise to have like a real medieval feeling.
All right, well, I think we should just jump straight into it. It's 15 minutes of footage, so I can't really wait to see how it looks. Here we go, Kingdom Come Deliverance. So it's happening on, let's say, modern, I mean not modern, but today's Czech Republic area.
Exactly. So Kingdom Come Deliverance is based on real history and a true story. So when you play the game, you will play through a story that actually really happened, which might be super interesting for those who are interested in history. However, if you're not interested in history, you can of course grab your sword and go into the battle and try to fight through Bohemian forests, for example. But of course, yeah.
It's first person.
It is first person and will forever stay first person. We thought that this is the best way to immerse you fully into the medieval feeling. And it gets even trickier because you see your opponent has a full plate armor, or a full plate helmet actually. And if you wear this kind of helmet, you will actually even see through a visor. So you will be limited in vision as well. So like the real deal, I mean.
It's ridiculously hard when you're in battle because you're in the middle of the fray and you can only see out of this tiny slit. So you have no idea what's going on behind you, if you're losing or winning. And then you can get hit by an arrow and you're like, where did that come from? So it makes it a lot harder to have no vision in battle.
How many kind of soldiers are we talking in these battles? You know, a couple of hundred on each side?
There's going to be very big size battles.
Yeah, it's a mixture, of course. It depends a lot if you get attacked by bandits. But since, well, again, we are talking about a historical thing. There were castles that has to be sieged in this particular landscape. So there will be as well castle sieges. So imagine people coming with the big ladders, throwing it at the wall, but there will be bow shooters who are shooting you, so while you are approaching the castle. So this will be really cool. However, this game is story-driven, very, very, very story-driven. So it's not like a game where you say, I want to conquer this castle and this village and this thing. It's more like the story leads you to a big thing, and that will be something like the finale of a long quest line or the game and such. So there are of course big moments, but the game, and it's also very important, it's not only about fighting. It's not a fighting game per se. It's a big feature you can have, of course.
Fighty to me.
Well, I mean, like if you want, you can.
Yeah.
It's a real RPG. We try to show the real type of RPG where you just decide what to do. And if you want to grab the sword, of course, go and fight and do the stuff. However, you can even solve most of the quests in a peaceful way and just talk your way through. Use your speech skill. Try to do some sneaky stuff like poison the bandits' food and just wait till they all collapse and stuff like this. So I mean, it's like really an RPG where we want to motivate the player to think, or to think actually, what would I do? Or what would be the best approach?
That was one of my favorite parts when I played the beta. You could, before the final battle, there was a bandit camp that you could sneak into, and you could go and poison their food, and that would help you out later on in the game. You could also set fire to their arrows and do all these sort of things, as well as scout out the encampment. Then you actually got to go back and report what you'd found and the best plan of attack. So you could say, oh, you know, there's no bandits there, we only need like 10 men. But then you would lose the war. So, you know, all of your decisions have these huge implications, as well as from which direction you attack. You might get ambushed. You know, you need to think about your decisions and plan. And that's what I like about the game. It's not just a a very linear thing that you follow. It's very open-worlded. One of my favorite things as well is that there are certain quests when someone will tell you to go here and do that. And if you don't go there and do that, there's like a time period on it. So they might say, come and help me because I'm going to be attacked by bandits. And if you say, oh, I need to eat or I'm hungry, so I'll go to sleep, and then you don't go there in time, you'll actually, you'll miss it and people will be like, where were you? So the game doesn't wait for you.
Yeah.
You have to play with the game.
So yeah, if there's a supply route coming or something and you've got to, maybe you want to attack it and then steal it,
precisely.
but if you miss it, it's gone.
Exactly. And this can open and close different quest lines. So if, again, as Danny said, if there's like the situation where he says, let's go to the forest and kill those bandits, and you don't go there because you decided open world RPG, do something else, right? Then he might go there alone and might die, which closes the entire quest line with this particular person. Or if you go with him, he might survive, and then it will lead you to another story, which is, I think, very great, because then there might be this cool situation where you talk with your friend and say, hey, there was this super hard fight and I barely made it, and your friend says, which fight? I talked to this guy, I persuaded him, and there was no fight. And it's like, that's what I think is like the spirit of RPGs, and give you the chance to...
I remember seeing some videos very early on when you first developing the game and about the armor types and like layering your armor and the combat systems. Even though it's not necessarily a combat game, the combat does have a lot of depth.
Yeah,
of course.
Usually you have to layer your armor. You put on your gambeson first, which is kind of like a padding, and you put on your plate armor afterwards, and that can slow you down and make you more cumbersome. And also, if you forget to put on your gambeson for some reason, and someone hits you, it does more damage. And we also have like area of effect damage. So, for example, one person I watched playing earlier jumped off a balcony and he broke his leg, and you're like just stumbling around like, oh, I didn't know it was that realistic. But this stuff happens.
You need padding if you don't want to hurt your nipples, right? So.
Exactly. This
Very
starts to hurt a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, but still, it's really just a video game. Well, yes, you get injured and stuff, but you will not die because of a broken leg, unless you maybe bleed out. But there's, of course, it's just a game, and you can bandage yourself. You will heal over time. So there are compromises here and there, but still we want to make it. You cannot loot. You can loot everyone and take everything you want, but then you overload, and then you have to carry the stuff home. You have no Lydia, which is following you.
There's a fine line between simulation and that not being very fun, and obviously gameplay and kind of making it so it's really entertaining and enjoyable to play.
Like, you can dress up as the enemy and go into their encampment and try and pretend to be them, especially if like you're very charismatic.
I noticed that in the gameplay that we've watched, it's mainly swords, the maces and warhammers.
We have pretty much all the medieval weapons which were common back then. The only one we didn't add was the flail, because we have something like it is a physical collision model. We, as Danny explained already, we exactly know where you hit the opponent. When we saw the fighting right now, there was like the star in the middle, so you can choose from where you want to attack, and if it's a little bit like Tekken, so up, left, right, and then you do a combo and so. However, if you attack the opponent's head and he has full plate armor but no helmet, he might die immediately, because we know that you attack the head, which has no protection at all. And with this flail, we tried it, but if you're attacking someone and the star bounces back and it hits you, then you would injure yourself. So we thought, let's do this in future.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that it's historically correct, right? I'm guessing...
we have a historian in the team, and she always shouts when I say it's historically correct, because no!
It's relative.
Well, I would say it is historically correct. She says, well, it's just our interpretation and potentially and so and so and so.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were no photographs back then, so...
Yes, exactly.
The question that I just wanted to ask is, how many people are actually working on the historic aspect of the game?
Well, we have one full-time historian in the team, but she is working with universities. She's working with the game takes place in Bohemia, which is today's Czech Republic, and the studio is located in Prague, in the capital of Czech Republic. So it's like round about 60 kilometers, or I don't know, 40 miles south of our studio. So we can go there and take pictures of the old castles and the churches and transfer them into the game. And she's also talking to the people who are taking care of these sites. They are extremely excited. They never heard about video games, but they are super excited that we are recreating the 1400 look of the castles and stuff. So technically we have one person in the studio, but practically she's working with all the institutions and historians
And
around.
you can also play the game if you're unfamiliar with history. There's like, if you open the menu, each character has like a nice little hand-painted portrait, and then you can read about them and their backstory. So if you want to understand more about the background of everyone, that's like, you can do that, but you don't have to.
Because you have authentic characters in the game.
Yeah, and it's not like history in your face and you have to now be interested in history. It's just the frame, which is historically correct if you're interested, but if you're not, well, then it's just another RPG, which is totally okay. But yeah, the most of the NPCs are actual real characters, so you can learn something about them.
That's awesome.
I was just going to ask, this is purely single player?
Yes, it's a single player open
Is there
world
any
game.
plans for co-op in the future, perhaps?
Excuse me?
Any plans for co-op in the future, maybe?
No,
or?
not for on Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Okay.
Well, there are ideas, but we'll see. Kingdom Come Deliverance, we're now focusing only to release this in February 13, and then maybe eventually. However, we would like to work somehow with the modding community after this is finished. We'll see about that, about details, but we have great experience, or people who are working at the studio has great experience with modding, and we would like to somehow approach them as well.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Well, one of my last questions, what about music?
Yes, this is actually a really, really tricky question, because in the 1400s, well, that's like again realistic thing, but we have a composer. We have actually a three-team music team, three guys music team, and they try to do some 1400 music. But the problem is back then they had mostly only church chorals, or only text without any music. There were no notes and stuff. So the real music, or what we think is medieval music, comes from the Renaissance, which is 200 years later. So they came up with their own interpretation of music to specific locations. So for example, the forest, there they composed a sound which seems timeless, because the forest, as you entered it back then, looks today kind of similar. So they try to choose somehow a timeless style of music. However, if you go into the pub, then there's the classical, the flute and everything, and this is like, and we recorded it actually with real reenactment bands who helped us to bring the old instruments, and they were playing the stuff.
All right, well,
So,
that's
yeah.
awesome to hear.
So we have the
effort,
mixtures.
the effort that comes into this game.
Well, actually, sorry that I interrupt. That's
don't
really
worry.
that's the point. Like it's video game. Of course, it's a video game, and that's the main purpose. But what I find is extremely cool on this, that it also touches like the academic sphere and a little bit like the historical part, that it's maybe not only a video game anymore, but also eventually, I don't want to lean too forward, but eventually some culture thing that could help you understand the past, for example.
All right, well, Adam, last question.
What's your favorite weapon in the game?
Well, the bow actually, but no. Well, no, the 1.5-hander. I'm more the attacking guy, so you can also block. There's a block button with the long sword. It's very hard to block because the window where you can execute perfect blocks is very small. So the shield and the short sword are better for that, like turtle mode. Okay. But I'm more into the like hard approach.
Big heavy things.
Yes, big heavy things. What's your favorite?
I think it takes a lot of skill because there's no reticle. So you have to really do it with practice. And the long shots, as they would be in real life, are like very hard to actually hit. Yeah. And you know, when you do hit someone though, especially in the head, they'll instantly go down and they'll be very hurt. And you'll see them like, you know, bend over because of the location damage. And likewise, if you get hit in the head in the middle of battle, you'll just get knocked down to the ground, lose half your health, and it's just like, oh my god. And it can happen.
So I just thought of one last thing. Is it permadeath? Like, what happens if you get killed? Do you just go back to your last save, or?
Yes, it would be very frustrating if you, after 80 hours, all of a sudden say, "Oh, too bad."
Roguelike with 80 hours of
Go
gameplay.
back to start and don't take $4,000.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. The game will be released
in February 2018 and 13th February 2018. One day before Valentine's Day. Perfect,
perfect gift
for all the romantic people out there.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys, for coming. This was an awesome presentation. I like the approach to the game, and yeah, we'll see how it goes in the future.
It's
Good
out
luck
on
with that.
PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC as well. We have so many questions about that.
Exactly. Okay, guys, thank you very much. This is this was Kingdom Come Deliverance, and we'll be back to these messages with more games, so don't go anywhere.